second political forum. We had the mayoral candidates last week and had a great turnout. We had a lot of wonderful questions that people submitted, as we have had this time. We are going to be doing the Ward 3 candidates and City Council President. They're going to be mixed in with each other. We just drew names to whomever is going to go first. And we're going to be changing out this between each person. We've got hand sanitizer if any of the candidates or people may want that. The questions, like I said, have just been great. We want to thank Old Town Association for doing this. We've had other wards that have wanted us to go and do that, and we were like, no way, we're doing ours. But thank y'all for coming, and hopefully we'll glean some information. Our first candidate is Clay Carmichael. He is a candidate for Ward 3 here in the City Council. I know that's annoying, but
that's good.
And one thing I did not say, each candidate will have 2 minutes to give a general presentation. Then we'll have 5 minutes of questions. And we had issues last week with the mayoral candidates because some people only answered 2 questions in 5 minutes and some answered 6. It's not the number of questions you get, it's 5 minutes.
Gary, I need to make an announcement.
Okay.
Someone in this Toyota needs to move. They're blocking the street of Toyota. Four-door Toyota needs to be moved.
Okay.
You want to make that? There's a 4-door Toyota in the street that's blocking the street that needs to move. Four-door Toyota in the street. My time? Okay. I'm Clay Carmichael, City Councilman, City Council candidate for Ward 3, and I'm just happy to be here. I appreciate Old Town Association for putting this on, and appreciate the Historic Preservation Society for donating the property for it. And I wanted just to let y'all know I grew up in Ward 3. I went to Bird School. I've been here most of my life. I work at Cosby Carmichael Concrete and run the plant there now. I have, over the past, I guess, 10 years since I've been home, I've been really focusing on making Selma a better place. I've been working with many organizations here. I've started Black Belt Benefit Group with a group of friends, and we work to help bring tourists here, bring music, give young people something to do, old people something to do. We raise money for other organizations, and recently raised funds for the Selma Police Department and Selma Fire Department. I think probably what Selma needs the most is to get back to the basics, and that's public works and public safety and the finances, and that's what the Alabama Constitution outlines that the municipal government is supposed to do, and I think we haven't been doing that very well, so I think we need to get back to that.
Alrighty, I'm going to be asking some questions that were submitted, and Clay will have 5 minutes to answer the questions. So our first question is, due to the breakdown of our city government, what would you do, Clay, to attempt to reinforce the city codes that we have, and what would you do to try to build back those departments that are no longer functional?
So as it goes for city codes, we really got to look at them as a body, as a governmental body, and see what's lacking and what's needed. There's actually some updated zoning codes that have been done recently by Goodwin, Mills, and Kaywood that the city has not put in place. So that's sitting back somewhere. We need to look at that and see if we can use that to update what we've currently got. What was the second part of that question?
It was in the dysfunctional city departments. What would you do as a council person to try to help those dysfunctional city departments?
That's the mayor's responsibility to execute and over all the departments. So I'd lend as much help as I could according to what the mayor wanted to do, and I think just give advice where I can, where my experience is, and make sure that the funds are allocated properly for whatever's needed there. Of course, I think we need to get community input on what's needed. I'm not the only professional. The council's not the only professional. There's a lot of professionals in Selma that know a lot more about some of these things, how they operate and how they're managed. And it's important to get the entire community's input in all this and make sure it's implemented properly.
And Clay, what do you see as the number one concern we have in Ward 3?
I had that question last week or whenever it was, and I said public safety, and I think that is pretty well on point. But it seems the hot topic right now is garbage, and that falls back on code enforcement, which is under public safety. But there's just an extraordinary amount of garbage around here. Trash dumping, and when it comes to that and code enforcement, there's abandoned houses around here that need to be torn down, burned houses that need to be torn down. So I guess to round that off, I guess code enforcement is a huge issue, and if we can get that properly working, then maybe we can improve some property values around here.
The next question that was submitted is, due to the financial crisis our city is in, would you be willing to serve for a reduction in pay if the budget mandated a pay cut across the board?
Absolutely.
Okay, alrighty. What have you personally done to improve Ward 3 as a citizen?
Probably what I've been doing the longest is cleaning up around here. I started as a kid with Boy Scouts, volunteering for the Battle of Selma, and more recently, my wife and I and some friends started Keep It Clean Selma to make sure that, I'll tell you why that was started, because there was a lot of litter on the ground after Jubilee, and on Facebook people were complaining about it. And we said, well, why not quit complaining about it and get out and do something about it? And so we decided to start an organization to start cleaning up the trash and garbage around town, and it grew. And we started working with the court system to get people out to clean for volunteer hours. We started working with Maya Jackson's Ward 3 cleanup. We worked with Selma Serves, which was a court-appointed deal, and had 30, 40 people out cleaning at one time, but that was citywide, and but we did a lot of cleanups in Ward 3, and it really people got tired because the garbage just kept being thrown out, and it's just, it wears on you. So, but that's probably the most recent thing.
And another question we got was, how as we can voters be certain that you're going to do what you say, and would you be willing to sign a pledge which states what you plan to do in public office and that you will follow through with it?
Yes, my card that I pass out to everybody, and most of y'all may have gotten them on your door, has a list of the things that are my priorities, and I will aim to do those while I'm in office. I'll sign a pledge if it's needed. You can take me for my word. I'm a man of my word. I always have been, and so But yeah, be happy to sign a pledge.
And the last question, that there was a question specifically for you. Has Terry Sewell endorsed you?
I don't think Terry Sewell endorsed me. That was a so I was nominated, just to explain that, if anybody saw that on Facebook, I was nominated for a the Local Heroes deal, and they found out that I was running for office after they decided that I was a local hero, and they said, well, we can't have somebody run for office as a local hero, so they took it down, and somebody took a screenshot of it and said, look, Terry Sewell induced Clay is behind Clay Carmichael, so it gets spread like that, but I don't think she endorsed me, no.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other candidates that have come in since Clay, Leotis, Stephen, Billy, and Lydia? Any other candidates that have come into the ground since then? All righty. Give me 1 minute to change. Okay, we're going to take our number 2. Who was number 2? Was that you, Leotis? Okay. Our second candidate to speak will be Leotis Strong, who is running for Ward 3 here in Selma for the City Council.
I want to thank everybody who had anything to do with making this possible for us to communicate about the issues. Thank you so much. Specific to Ward 3, one of the things we've got to absolutely do in Ward 3 is realize that we are history rich, so we cannot afford to be doorknob dumb about the gold mine that we're sitting on top of. Old Town Historic District is a gold mine. We have to work with the Selma City Historical Commission and bridge that gap of communication so that they work together as a team with ADECA. There are all kinds of things that were submitted in the previous 20-year comprehensive plan that were not done, that we are deprived of. But we got a break in that a new 10-year comprehensive plan has now been submitted to ADECA that incorporates some of the things like bike paths, walking trails, green spaces, that will include having to buy up and tear down some houses and utilize that are vacant, not your house, that are vacant, not being used, but to turn that space into usable space. We cannot be unmindful of the fact that the Riverview Historic District also is a part of Ward 3. And so we've got to bridge the gap not only with Selma Historic Commission and ADECA, but also with Riverview, and realize that the Riverview portion of it, the comprehensive plan stretches all the way from the amphitheater down to the old DHR building. And anybody sitting here who does not realize the value of that waterfront property and the possibilities that exist in the next 10 years, if I'm elected, I will make sure that Ward 3 comes to the point to where we take full advantage of the gold mine that we are sitting on top of, and that we're not caught in a doorknob dumb position. We have a tremendous resource in B.J. Smothers, who has worked in government and who knows as much about historical commissions as anybody. I will utilize her as a resource. I've recently got a $500,000 grant federal grant to restore the Boynton House, and I guess I better stop here. I can't tip.
Thank you, Leotis. Now we're going to be asked to have the questions, and one of the questions is, according to the broken window theory, ignoring little problems creates a sense of irreversible decline. As a city council person, how would you personally try to help enforce those little laws that make a big difference in our community?
Well, I tried to look at the big picture. I will sign a pledge. I our whole system is broken, so enforcement of any laws is not taking place. I will sign a pledge that issues that come before the council, and I would try to get others to agree, mayor on down, that instead of going litigation to court, we will go arbitration mediation and go to the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution and let them give us 3 expert, credential certified ADR mediation arbitration specialists. We resolve that, because unless the system works, then the system does not deliver that service or any of the other services we're talking about.
Okay. Thank you. And what do you think is the #1 concern for Ward 3, Leotis?
It's not either or, it's both and. We have to be concerned about public safety. Who is not in this group? We have to be concerned about public works. We have to be concerned about strategic planning. If we push that off and forget about it in terms of Old Town, in terms of Riverview, we're not any better off. We've got to be the kind of thinkers who can look at 3 or 4 different issues at the same time in order for us to move from a mess that we're caught up in now to a model city, a model ward, a model city that we have. Our time is too far spent for us to have the either or luxury. We don't have that. We've got to deal with all of it.
Okay. Another question came in is, what criterion should council people use to determine whose grass is cut and which citizens to help? There are people in our community who feel that some citizens do not get the help that they need. And is there a criteria that should be set for cleanup efforts in all parts of the city?
The criteria is that we stop being a constant, permanent crisis management mode. That is no way to run a city. In triage, stabilizing the vital signs is #1, and those folk who have cut grass, picked up paper, commend them, applaud them, but that is no way to run a city. Those volunteers deserve all the glory we can give to them, but are we going to turn around and have volunteer policemen with volunteer guns and volunteer police cars and volunteer firemen and volunteer firewomen and volunteer fire trucks putting out volunteer fires? Being in constant, non-stop crisis management mode is no way to run a city. That's why we've got to go. Well, it's in your folders. It's in your folders, folk, and I have some more. I'm sorry I can't tell you everything, but it's in your folders.
Okay. And the other new industries provide jobs, thereby increasing tax base and providing the city much needed revenues to maintain our infrastructure. What plans do you personally have to help attract new businesses to Selma as the Ward 3 council?
We got to be pro-business. We've got some of the best businesses located in Ward 3. We got to nurture and encourage them in business, stay in business, and expand. Here's something I've already done. I've gotten a $500,000, $500,000 federal grant to restore a property, historical property here. That money, we're trying to, I have a local architect, Hudgens Architectural Firm, that I was able to get identified and selected, so that money is spent here. I'm trying to spend as much of that. And then at Brown Chapel, we have increased and expanded our tourism footprint. We're growing it. There's still room to grow. We need to coordinate, some coordination between all of the independent tour directors who are here. We have the Interpretive Center. We have the Chamber of Commerce. We need to bring those resources together to make sure that they're all working together and not in competition with each other, because tourism is one of our biggest assets.
Right. Now, Leotis, would you be willing to serve for a reduction in pay?
No money. I don't need any money to do this.
Okay.
And the rest of that is that, well, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. You can answer if you want to.
I don't need any money. The other thing I would do in terms of team building, not theoretical team building that everybody's promising, but the team building in practice, we've got to break this pattern where people who run for office in Ward 3 and who run because they love and want to improve the area, and then if they're not fortunate enough to be the ones elected, they get pushed to the side, and the ideas that they bring, the passion they bring, the love that they bring is shut off from being used. I will make those persons a part of my team. Look at the Simon Sinek model of leadership and vision, and you're looking at Leotis Strong. We need those resources if we're going to become if we're going to go from being a mess to being a model.
Thank you, Leotis. Thank you so much.
All right, it's in your folder. Thank you.
Are there any other candidates who have come in since we have started that need to come up here and get a number? Any other candidates who are here? You can come up. Our next candidate that we're going to hear from is running for Ward 3, Stephen Brooks. Just your 2-minute introduction, Tom.
Good evening to one and all. My name is Stephen Brooks, and I am a candidate for Ward 3. I want to thank everybody that's putting this production on this evening, all the folks involved. The reason I'm running for Ward 3 is because I've fallen in love with Selma. And here in Selma, we're looking for some good things. We're looking for some improvements. Carol and I have been here for the past 16 years. We're here because we're up here for our grandkids and for the love of history. And this is so much is enjoyed here in Selma. The history that's here. We have such wonderful opportunities for folks to come visit, to spend that tourist dollar. I'm all behind the tourist dollar, I'm all behind the chamber, and I'm all behind bringing businesses in here through the efforts of, I believe the gentleman's name is Varnaman, and the other councils that are involved in this. Some of the other things, I'm involved in the Selma Dallas County Historic Preservation Society. As the other folks have said, I will also say I've been out here on the cleanup projects. Maya Jackson's been out here. I've been out in Riverview. I've been in Old Town. I've been out to Mill Village, cleaning up around there when we had the cleanups. Been involved with Old Cahaba, haunted history tours, bring that tourist dollar in, generate that revenue through tourism. These are some of the things that I have been involved in. These are some of the things I will continue to be involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a timekeeper last week, but I don't this week. So, okay, we're going to start your questions, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
And the first question is, what would you do to attempt to rebuild enforcement of city codes in Ward 3 and citywide in the city of Selma as a council person?
Safety for our citizens is a major concern. It's been a major issue that's been talked about for a long period of time. I am definitely behind a very well-trained, well-paid, well-equipped police department, fire department, and a public works unit. Code enforcement. Everyone sitting here in this venue this evening knows that we do not have one single code enforcement officer. There's no one out here that is doing code enforcement. I believe that we need to work as the new council with the new mayor to put together a very substantial code enforcement to go through this city and to correct those deficiencies that are out there, and that will make for a safer and a much more wonderful looking environment for us to prosper in.
And Stephen, what do you see as the #1 concern for Ward 3?
Talking with the folks in Ward 3 as we've gone around door to door and talking with folks in the Old Town Association at meetings, the big thing that I see is the ordinances, and that brings us back to the code enforcement. The other thing is, I would like to suggest community policing. I would like to see the police officer out into the neighborhood, knowing who's in the neighborhood, and that means that we need to beef up our police department. We need to get behind them with pay and equipment and education. And I also like the idea not only of the community policing, but I also like the idea of neighborhood watch. I think we get back to neighborhood watch with neighbors watching for neighbors and neighbors caring for neighbors. We once again will install that feeling of security within our neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. How can we as voters be certain that you're going to do what you say? And would you be willing to sign a pledge which states what you plan to do in public office and how you will stick to it?
Signing a pledge? Why not? How am I going to stick to it? Put me in that Ward 3 position on the City Council and you will see that I will stick to it. I have never backed off any project that I've taken. The projects that I've taken on here for the Selma Dallas County Historic Preservation Society, the projects that I've taken on here, putting on the house that we put on for Christmas 2 years in a row, the projects for the Cahaba. When I tell you that I'm going to take a project on, I'm going to do that project. It's going to get done to the best of my ability.
Thank you. And Stephen, how can you as a council person help to attract new business to Selma?
The Chamber, the Economic Council that we have here, working with those folks and ensuring that the Chamber gets the word out that we have the abilities here. There are also things that we can do that involve incentives. There's legal incentives that you can give to a business to bring a business into your community. We need to explore all those pathways to bring businesses into our community. We need to look at our colleges here, the students coming out of our own colleges right here in Selma. What can they offer to a business looking for a good, solid employee? These are some of the things I work with the council, with the chamber, and economic development.
And Stephen, would you be willing to serve for reduction in pay if the budget mandated a pay cut across the board?
As long as you take my pay cut and you put it back into the hands of our firefighters, our police officers, and our public workers. I don't want to see it going for a frou-frou project over here. I want to see that pay cut, which I will take, go to something solid to the folks that need it to support their families. Police, fire, public works, and...
Thank you. And what criterion could you as a council person use to determine whose grass is cut and which citizens get help? And is there a criterion that can be set up so that all people feel like they equally get cleanup efforts?
The criterion that we're talking about, I cannot relate to you at this very moment the absolute specifics, but we actually have city ordinance that will tell you how long the grass, how high the grass is to be. So if we get back to an active, proactive,
Finish your thought.
the code enforcement folks, if we get back to active, proactive code enforcement, that will take care of itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, sir.
Our next candidate that we're going to hear from is for City Council President, Mr. Billy Young. And for those who may have come up since we made the announcement, each candidate gets 2 minutes to do a general introduction and to kind of tell their platform, and then the 5 minutes will be questions that were pre-submitted. You can take it off if you want to.
I'm so tall I had to bring it down. We must learn to live together here as brothers or perish together here as fools. Good afternoon, Selma.
Good afternoon.
I am Warren Billy Young, and I am seeking the office of President of the Selma City Council. First of all, I'm very grateful and thankful to be here this evening to see this wonderful crowd. I would like to thank the Old Town Association for sponsoring this worthy event, and thank you all for coming out, even fighting a pandemic. And before I can continue, I do want to make note of the pandemic. We're experiencing a COVID-19 pandemic. There are currently 1,305 confirmed cases here in Selma, Dallas County, and 23 deaths. So please keep yourselves safe and keep all individuals in your prayers. So I'm here to ask tonight for you to vote for me to be Selma City Council President. Well, why vote for Warren Billy Young for Council President? I'm glad that you asked. I want you to look at qualifications, because qualifications do matter. This is a job interview, ladies and gentlemen, and everything is on the table. So you must look at my qualifications, the criteria, and the experience and the successes that I've had in this community throughout my lifetime. I'm a lifelong resident of Selma, Alabama. Additionally, I want you to consider my platform, which first is to restore confidence in municipal government by being a great city council president, by investing in education through the Selma Education Trust Foundation. I have experience with foundations. I have created and worked for 2 nonprofit organizations. Additionally, I want to promote community redevelopment. Right now we have the Downtown Redevelopment Authority. Let's make that citywide. Selma needs redevelopment in all wards, not just in one concentrated area. And finally, promote fair wages. Go higher, vote Billy Young.
Okay, thank you. All right, Billy, the first question that we have for you is, we know the dysfunction that has happened in our city in this last 4 years with the mayor and the city council. What is you as city council president, what can you do to bridge that liaison between the city council and the mayor?
Do my job. That is to make sure that we have an effective agenda and that we go through with the agenda and just don't kick things down the road like we've been doing for the last 4 years. That is to offer effective leadership to the citizens and also to be a consensus builder. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not very many people of us that live here in Selma, Alabama. So if we're gonna live here together, we should work here together to restore our Queen City.
Marty, what do you see as the #1 item in Selma that the city council can make the biggest difference in?
I think the biggest difference is, first of all, take a look at the budget. We are operating off of a budget that was approved 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Things have changed economically here in Selma since the last time a balanced budget was adopted. And then we can start meeting all of those other needs like infrastructure, potholes, and reducing crime. So that is making sure we live within our means. We have to live within our means. Selma should too.
And would you be willing to serve for a reduction in pay if the budget mandated a pay cut across the board?
I would be willing to serve without pay. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not here for a check. I am here because I love Selma, Alabama, and I want it to be the city all of us want it to be. So no money is needed to do the service. Service is the price we pay for the space we occupy.
Thank you. What could you as the city council president do to help attract new businesses to our city?
To be the best ambassador I possibly can for the city, and also to use my know-how, my business acumen. I'm a tax attorney for the state of Alabama, and I've been practicing for almost 15 years as a tax attorney for the state of Alabama. So I understand business. I understand the tax code. That is one of the things that I want to make sure that all council members are familiar with the tax code, and also Title 11, which is the municipal government code. If we're going to make laws, we need to know the law.
Okay. Currently, there is a disparity between salaries of major department heads and workers in the departments. For example, police chief, police officers, etc. What would you do to remedy this disparity?
I think we have to sit down. Well, first of all, never lose sight of what your job is. So stay in your lane. I'm the council president. I am not the mayor. it would be the mayor's responsibility to meet with the department heads and then come up with some type of resolution to maybe reevaluate the salaries. Everything else in life has been changed. Our cost of living has changed what it was 10 years ago. We've got to look at things and adjust to meet the current need of the day. So I would hopefully work with the newly elected mayor to make sure that we have wages that are fair and that are equitable and a livable wage for the people of Selma, Alabama.
How would you, as a city council president, deal with the mayor that was opposing every move you made?
Well, first of all, like my mother told me, I go to God in prayer on everything that we do. So I would ask God to intercede and to help. But then I would make sure that the mayor knows that I'm not there to carry the water for the mayor or to represent the mayor, that I'm not there to represent the council, but I am there for the people of Selma. And I will remind that mayor, I would go back and look at these tapes of all these promises and everything that they're telling people now. Everybody's making a promise. The only promise I make is that I'm going to do the very best I possibly can do, and that I'm always going to do what's in the best interest of Selma, Alabama. So I would go to that mayor in good faith, having worked with that individual and pleading with them to act in the best interest of Selma, because Selma put you up there not to disagree, but to come together and solve these problems for Selma, Alabama.
Thank you. And kind of going hand in hand with that question, would you be willing to sign a pledge which states what you plan to do in public office and that will hold you accountable to do what you say you are going to do?
I believe that there are several individuals that are taping this event tonight, and so please feel free and let me say I will sign a pledge, and also going on record now as saying that I am a ready, willing, able participant, and also I have a history of consensus building, making sure budgets are passed, making sure everything that is done to make an effective operation. We're going to make Selma go higher. Let's go higher with leadership you can trust. Vote Warren Billy Young, Selma City Council President. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask once again, is there any candidate who has come in since we have started that has not gotten a number? Any candidate for either Ward 3 or for City Council President? Alrighty. Thank you. And the next person we're going to hear from is number 5. And I do not remember who that is. So who's number 5? Lydia, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. I am so appreciative to the Old Town Association and you all for being here, because I do see folks from all wards and all walks of life. So thank you for being here. Now, my intro is a little bit different. I'm going to ask you to travel with me really quickly. And if you don't mind indulging me by closing your eyes. We're all socially distanced, so nobody's going to bite, okay? Imagine, if you will, a bustling small city in the Deep South, known around the world for its people and their contribution to society. Imagine the streets of that historic town and its downtown corridors being lined with beautiful buildings where colorful boutiques and quaint cafes are commonplace. Imagine walking along brick sidewalks, enjoying splendor of seasonal flowers, and being drawn in by the smell of freshly baked bread or the sound of sizzling steaks. You visit a house-turned restaurant recommended by a local resident, and feast on the best fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and collard greens you've ever had. As the sun sets, you travel to the river's edge to board the most magnificent riverboat you've ever seen and spend an hour or two just relaxing in the summer breeze. Please open your eyes. You wonder where I'm talking about? I'm talking about the city we live in, the city of Selma, this magical destination, the city of Selma that I envision we will create by working together to overcome crime, poverty, and a lack of trust in our community's government. It is the Selma we will work to build if I am elected to serve as your City Council President on August 25th. My name is Lydia Chapman. I was born here, matriculated through the Selma City School District, have degrees in communications and political science. I am excited about my hometown, and I want our hometown to grow. I look forward to talking to you individually and would love and I humbly ask you for your support on August 25th.
Thank you, Lydia. Lydia, the first question is, according to the broken windows theory, ignoring little problems creates an irreversible decline. What could you do to make sure that the little things are done in Selma to keep it from turning into a bigger problem?
Great question. I really think one of the major issues that we experience in our community is the lack of understanding. We think a lot of times that the best solution is to enforce codes. However, when people are unaware of those codes, it's kind of hard to incarcerate before you educate. So one of the first things that we have to do is make sure community members are aware. This is a wonderful gathering. Who's to say that we shouldn't have gatherings like this in neighborhoods all the time, right? Regardless of whether they're in Ward 3 or Ward 4 or Ward 8. Let's get together. Let's share the information. Let's make sure that we can hold each other accountable in love, because when now that you know better, like Grandma used to say, you know better, you can do what? Better, right, you can do better. So then now it's time for enforcement.
And Lydia, as the City Council President, what could you do to help attract new business to Selma?
Wow, a lot. As City Council President, one of the first things, it is really important for us to build relationships. Our small business owners who are currently here in the city have to be confident that the city is not trying to attract businesses that will put them out of business, but rather be confident in the ability for our community to grow together. So we have to make sure that things are in place downtown so that when you owe taxes, you know exactly what you owe. If you are questioning codes and things like that, we have that easily accessible. It is important for us to be able to have access to the information. As far as recruiting new businesses, we have to literally make a strategic plan that will allow us to seek these businesses in a strategic way. Again, increasing what we have, but doing it in a way that those that we already have, right, the small businesses along our downtown corridors, so that they aren't threatened, but are strengthened by our efforts.
And Lydia, what do you see as the biggest issue facing Selma today, and what, as you as City Council President, could you do to help that issue?
The biggest issue facing our community today is the lack of relationship. It really becomes very easy for us to enforce. It becomes very easy for us to cause harm to people that we don't really know. But when we build real, healthy relationships with one another, where we've actually had conversations, we're not fearful of our neighbor, where we can walk over and say, hey, well, did you know that the trash truck doesn't come until next week, so it might be a good idea, you know, if you wait kind of closer to the day that it comes, so that things will be picked up and won't be all blown all across the street. So building relationships, whether it is between myself and the mayor, between myself and my colleagues on the council, and all of us as community members. But first, that council-mayor, council dynamic, those relationships should be modeled, right? So we need to have great relationships so that the community can see that as a model, so that we can move forward and build more powerful, meaningful relationships. It's hard to hurt somebody when you know who that is.
And kind of piggybacking off that question, how would you as City Council President address an issue where you and the mayor were in total disagreement?
Have the conversation, and have as many conversations as it takes until we reach a consensus. Talking does a whole lot. Communication is one of the #1 reasons that marriages fail. So why wouldn't government fail when we shut down? We have, and I've even observed that during this particular election cycle, we have continuously had people that shut down. Just because we disagree does not mean that I'm not your friend, right? That does not mean that we can't associate with one another. That does not mean that we can't solve their problem. We could have had differences in the past. That has nothing to do with right now, because our job is to work together to make sure that we do what's best for everybody in this city. So relationships and having clear communication, even with the people, like residents need to know what's going on in their city. We need to be able to look up and see our voting record for our folks that are in our ward, right? Know whether you've attended any of the council meetings, right? What your voting record is on different things. So communication is key.
And Lydia, there was 2 questions that were directed specifically to you.
Okay.
And it says, as an employee of the Selma Center for Nonviolence, directed by Anika Sanders, with Rose Sanders on the board, can you make independent decisions of our city that does not include the Sanders?
Absolutely. Anika and I are classmates. We're childhood friends. We've had our differences. We actually are an example of what I was just talking about. There was a time for years that both of us shut down. We did not benefit from that, neither one of us. But the moment we started to have the conversation, we were able to reach a consensus and move forward. Now, I know that there is a stigma associated with Anika's family, her mother, and the way that she tends to address issues is not exactly what most people would prefer. But again, healthy relationships. Because if there comes a moment where there could be conflict, where protests may seem to be a part of what she may feel or others may feel is necessary, that's where the relationship is going to be important. So that now I can pick up the phone and say, now, Ms. Sanders, we got to talk about this. See, because the way we have to look at things is not the person. We've got to get at the problem, the root of the problem, and not villainize people. She's not a villain. There aren't people in our community, anybody in our community, that we should be able to label as a villain, because that separates. What if she has an ingenious idea, but because she's been villainized, or anybody, because it could be me, it could be you, anybody out here. We have to have those relationships that are strong enough to have the communication that could literally stop the problem. You know, there's not going to be an issue there. She and I, Rose and I have had our differences, but we can continue to have conversations. Communication is so important. I can't stress it enough.
Thank you so much,
that's
Lydia.
it. Oh, thank you.
Is there any candidate who has come up and has not gotten a number? Any candidate for either the city council president or for Ward 3 that has not received a number? Thank you. And I think that our next speaker is going to be, I think it's Sunshine. Are you number 6? Okay.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's good to be out here. I grew up on Lapsley Street. I went to Bird School. My grandmother, it's such a beautiful thing to just be right here in the midst of where I grew up and used to just walk and play all the time. So that's just a blessing. And my kids are right here, Jeremiah and Solomon. I have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. So that's my most important job, raising them. But the next important job that I seek is to be your next city council president. I heard a lot of just political speech here. Everybody knows, I've been on the radio with Rose and them. There's no talking to Rose when she decides to want to protest. And when you call her, it gets worse. So whenever someone says that, I have to beg to differ and just not really understand your judgment. And when it comes to relationships in Selma, we really have to not use our relationships in leadership. I have a master's degree in leadership and organizational development. And before that, I was studying change development and within businesses. And I do believe we need to just change our mindset. And if we keep going on with these basic relationships and basic friendships and basic status quos, we will never get anywhere. We'll continue to be in this vicious cycle of nothingness. Because right now we have nothing. I mean, we talk about trash. We talk about the cleanup. I lived on Lamar Avenue and I have not seen one candidate come to my yard to say, let's clean up anyone. Well, a couple of my neighbors, but they don't look like me. And they go frequently. They got yard cut 3 and 4 times. But the single mothers on my block, we don't see you guys. We don't see you at all. And I mean that across the board for every candidate that spoke for Ward 3, and there's nothing personal. From my pastor at Brown Chapel to Clay, who bought me dinner and made up for the quesadilla. I'm not mad about the quesadilla. I love you, Clay. Mr. Brooks, I even said I was going to campaign for you, and you passed my house and went and cut my neighbor's grass. So I just look at what do you guys, what are you really serving? Who are you serving? Are you serving, or is it self-centered? Because it's time out for that. It's time for us to serve the city, and that's what I'm going to do, friendships or not.
All right, thank you, Sunshine. And the first question, Sunshine, is, as the city council president, what could you do to help enforce city codes in our city?
We have 1,000 ordinances. When I first bought my house in 2012, I kind of studied the ordinances. Remember, I started going to city council. I got here in 2005 when Katrina. I've been going to city council meetings since then. In 2012, I got sick. I got tired. By 2016, I just gave up because it was just a circus. I was sitting in every meeting. A lot of you guys know that. You saw me and I was there. A lot of people who are sitting here now and saying that, Mr. Evans, Terry Sue, I heard a lot of names. I got a lot of y'all in the office. Angela Benjamin, when she was in the runoff, I got her, I helped her get there. So when I say I did a lot of work in this community, grass works hardcore, hand-to-hand combat, that's what I did. Greg Belkey. So when I say I don't care what you think you know of me, you better recognize my work and my diligence in my work in this community. So all you gotta do is go to the codes and update them. Make them cognizant to the time that we're serving it now. So if they're saying that trash is supposed to be picked up at a certain time, or the leaves supposed to be, the trees, bushes are supposed to be 12 feet, let's enforce it. But we don't need another department to do that. We had David Evans spending money, riding around. They was just milking the system. We don't need no more of that. We have enough police. We have enough public works departments. And I just feel when it comes to code enforcement, especially these abandoned properties, we need to see who's actually listing their properties warehousing and not actually livable spaces. Because that makes a difference in taxes, and that takes away our revenue. And we need to start paying attention to how we actually make excuses for why our properties look so run down. Rent it out.
Thank you. And what do you see as the #1 problem in Selma, Sunshine, and what, as you as city council president, what do you do to help that problem?
The #1 problem I've seen since high school is the relationship between the council and president and the mayor. When I left, Perkins was vying for mayorship against Smitherman, and that was a whole, overthrow of the system. Then Perk got to go. So it's always a systematic seat. The city council president is a systematic seat that's been used to be a tyrant to the mayor. I don't want to do that. I don't care who wins mayor. I don't care our relationship, if we're friends, not friends. I am not going to be a tyrant. So ask another question at the end, because I don't see to have a problem with the mayor, because I'm going to let them know from the beginning, whoever wins, I'm going to be team A mayor. I'm team mayor. So if there's a discrepancy on our thought processes, I'm going to check myself, because that's the mayor.
Okay, thank you. And would you be willing to serve for a reduction in pay if the budget mandated a pay cut across the board?
First of all, we got to get a budget. I'm not talking about no hypothetical budgets. We got to get a budget. First, I'm going to tell you you're not going to spend discretionary funds if you don't have a budget. So that's what we're going to stop. So I'm not going to ask anyone to reduce salary. What I'm going to do is actually put a budget forth. Just put a budget forth. Let's start spending money the right way. Let's be accountable in everything that we do and give people their paychecks. People say they don't want to check. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. But we're going to do it the right way. And if it takes that we reduce some salaries, that's okay too.
Thank you. And how, Sunshine, would you, as the city council president, work to attract new businesses to Selma?
Cleaning up, being accountable for what's going on with the crime. Stop lying in the statistics. You know, like my house burnt down and it never was on the news. It was not even in the news. It didn't get any type of press. My mother was like, well, dang, y'all just get burnt out your house and they don't even be on the news? Nope, depending on who you are. If you're not in the wheelchair, you might not. If you're a vocal person, you might not. So be accountable for the crime statistics. If it's gunshots every day, we're not going to talk about some of this domestic violence. I got arrested so many times with my neighbor for violating my property rights on a domestic violence charge. I mean, this man never had no personal relationship, but the police officers that were fired used to just fudge the information. We got to stop doing that. Let's tell the truth about what's going on in this community. Let's tell the truth. And once we start telling the truth, we might get some more money in for crime. But if we keep lying, like we don't have these arsons, we keep lying like these folks ain't breaking up into your stuff, we keep lying like these folks ain't breaking into your businesses, we're going to keep getting nothing but a whole bunch more lies.
Okay. And if this, it says, according to the broken window theory, little problems create a sense of irreversible decline. What can you do to stop little problems before they get to be a major issue?
It's no stopping the problems that we have. It's time to stop the problems. There is so many. The broken window syndrome has taken over the city. Who overlooked the little problem? Like, don't put it on my shoulders, because the little problem's been avoided for how many years? I've been here since '05. So don't put the broken window syndrome on me. Put it on yourselves. Put it on yourselves for hiding the issues. Put it on the current leaderships that you guys voted on, people, your friends, the business, the rich landowners that keep warehousing their houses instead of making them livable houses. Those are the broken. Look inside. Look, the man in the mirror. The broken window syndrome starts with the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror, or however you classify yourself.
Would you be willing to sign a pledge which states what you plan to do in public office and how you will follow through with that?
I don't know. No, because I'm going to follow the rule. And when I do the oath, when I win, because I think I'm going to win. God's going to bless me when I win. I'm just going to say my oath, the God and the people. I don't have to do any extra things to please anybody else. I'm not doing any of that. It's pandering. That's pandering. I'm not going to beg, I'm not doing it. I'm going to put my right hand up, put my hand on the Bible, and ask the universe and my ancestors to guide me in the decisions that I make. Other than that, I'm not pledging anything other than what's right by law. And I know the law. My degrees, I study business law. I might not know tax laws, as appropriate, but I definitely know business law. And I know a lot of things that we've done in the city have been counterproductive to business.
Alrighty. And as a city council president, what criteria would you use to determine whose grass is cut and which citizens get help? And is there a criteria that needs to be set so that all get cleanup efforts?
I'm going to pay public works. I'm just going to make sure public works keep their jobs. Like, why are we even arguing? Like, that's a silly question within itself, because I asked the question, but I was really being redundant when I asked the questions, because everybody's out here cutting grass now. And I'm just trying to figure out how y'all make that assessment. Like, do y'all just say, oh, Miss Jack need her grass cut, or, oh, but there's a lot of grass, and you're overlooking it. And then some people got big bush hogs. I would have thought it'd have been more productive to get little kids in the community a whole bunch of cheap lawnmowers and have them out here for $10 an hour just making some little summer money. But nah, y'all put all your eggs in one basket. Now he off doing contracts in other counties. It's not making sense. And all I'm gonna say is put public works back to work. And instead of getting all these high maintenance plants, get some low maintenance plants. Get some cheap ones. Sometimes you can just throw some wild flowers out and it's just as beautiful as some of the stuff that y'all been buying with these high contracts. Thank you. God bless y'all.
Are there any other candidates for city council president or for Ward 3 city council that have come up that have not gotten a number? If not, we want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. We thank you for just your questions that you sent us. Sir? Yes, sir. I asked about the pledge question. Sometimes I didn't get through every single question with each person. I tried my best, but it depending on how much that they answered on other things. So, but I tried to ask the same questions to everybody. Not everybody got the same questions because of time constraints, but thank you.